It is Thursday, November 21st, 2024. This is episode 45 of the Carlos Whittaker podcast. I am Carlos Whittaker. I want to let you know something. I am so glad you're here. 45, episode 45. The podcast is almost catching up to how old I am. Almost. We got another month or so before we can be twinning the podcast and I. So glad you're here. Welcome to the Thursday before Thanksgiving episode of the Carlos Whittaker podcast. What are you thankful for? You guys thankful? Wait, why is the volume not going down? Oh, I've got the wrong fader on here. Hey, welcome. So glad that you're here. I kind of want to do like just kind of talk to you guys about how I'm feeling. Is that okay? Can we do that? Like a whole bunch of different things today. As we fade out Dr. Delight here. I have had a pretty crazy couple days on the socials. Reason being is let's just start here. Bluey. Let's just start with Bluey. I had planned, I've not unpacked this on Instagram, so you guys get to hear me unpack this firsthand. I had planned on talking about some pretty, some things that make people emotionally charged 2 days ago. And I had put up a question box on my stories last week, kind of based on the election and wanting people to tell me how they were feeling about it. And, I'm Mr. Don't stand on issues, walk with people. So I was like, hey, let me hear from, so I put up a question box and somebody asked me the question. It was just a random question box. I was like, ask me a question. And someone's like, can you tell me why people that voted and their candidate didn't win are so terrified of, because that's the word a lot of people are saying, they're terrified, or we're so terrified of the next 4 years he's been president before. So I thought, oh my gosh, what a great question to ask. So I was like, I've got a lot of people that follow me that say they're terrified. I got a lot of people that follow me that voted for Trump and that are excited. So I put up that and saying, hey, answer this person in a respectful way. Like they want to know why you're terrified. So I put up that question box and I got thousands of responses. And I was like, oh, interesting. I said, okay, so also somebody put in my question box, can you let people know that people that are conservative aren't necessarily MAGA? There's a difference. So then I put up a question box about that and I let Trump voters and conservatives tell me the difference between MAGA and Trump. Then I put up a question box saying, hey, if you're a Trump voter, what would you like to say to Kamala voters? So they weren't necessarily the same questions. So the responses were different, right? One question was pointedly, what are you terrified of? Another question box, probably the other main question box was, if you're a Trump voter, what would you like to say to Kamala? So what happened is inevitably the responses were, the first ones were, this is what we're fearful of. And the second ones were pretty, we love you. Sorry you're feeling sad, kind of, it wasn't, I didn't ask if I could have asked the question again, which I will because of my Instagram, right? I would have asked the same question. Listen, I'm not a pollster. I don't know how to do this. But I, am learning. And so I'm like, oh, I'm going to do it again. So then I put up another question box saying, if you could ask the other side of the aisles something, what would you ask them? And I'm going to use that question box later. All of this is all leading to Bluey. Trust me. Okay. All this to say, I waited to share all those question box responses until, oh, thank God. I just looked over to make sure I was recording. The last time I recorded my podcast, I forgot to hit record. It was awful. I waited until Monday to share those responses because I put up the question box on Friday. Well, I just kind of wanted a little bit of time in between. And I was busy. I played in a pickleball tournament last weekend and I won the silver medal. Excuse me. Do I not have it with me? I won a freaking silver medal in a pickleball tournament. What? I'm good for an amateur. Gosh, man, I am all over the place today. It's fine. That's why you listen to me, right? So I wake up ready to share all of these, pretty emotionally charged responses, but I get to share them in a calm way. And I think that's what people were excited about. So I wake up in the morning, I make my coffee, and I'm like, hey guys, we're gonna have some, I need you to be ready. You're gonna read some things that maybe you're not gonna like. If you're not ready to read this stuff, just skip today. And so I'm like, have my coffee on my porch, and then I walk in my front yard because some of my inflatables aren't standing up. And when I go out there, I realized, I've not actually, Heather gave me this inflatable that I didn't even know what it was. And she made me put it in the front yard. And I was like, babe, like I've got an aesthetic. I've got a vibe to my Christmas decorations. Like I've got a vision. And she gave me like this little blue dog looking thing to put up. And she's like, all the kids in the neighborhood are going to love it. And I was like, what is it? Is it a dog? I don't even know what it is. She's like, it's called Bluey. Trust me, the kids are going to love it. And I was like, it's a vibe killer. It's just a vibe killer. So I'm giving a tour of my front yard on my Instagram. And I said, and Heather also put this, had me put this inflatable up in the front yard. I don't know what it is. It is dogs, is it a boy, is it a girl? I don't know what it is. Can I go and tell you? The amount of responses and DMs I got that I did not know who Bluey was overwhelming. Overwhelming. To the point where everyone's like, how do you not know? And I was like, well, it's a kid's show. My kids are 22, 21, and 18. They watched Dora. They didn't watch Bluey. They're like, no, Carlos, like you don't understand. These are 7 to 8 minute episodes. And it's like Bluey is a part of the Insta Familia. Trust me. And I was like, what? So then I come inside and I was like, well, okay, I'm going to watch one. And I don't know if you guys remember, I'd never seen an episode of The Office before, a full episode. I'd always kind of quit it 10 minutes in. So I watched an episode of The Office live on Instagram once and it was a hit. So I was like, I'm going to record myself watching this episode of Bluey. You guys can go and watch it. It's on my TikTok. It's on my Instagram. I made it 3 minutes in and I was like, whoa, I got a lump in my throat. 5 minutes in, I started to feel tears well up in my eyeball sockets. 7 minutes in, I'm weeping. And I was like, what is this cartoon? It pulled out all these feelings in me as a father. It felt like it was like giving permission to parents to parent with intention. It seemed like it helped the kids. I was blown away. So all that to say, I posted that video before I posted the election survey results. And the video went nuts, went viral. It's been viewed 3 million times. It's still I ended up with like 4,000 new followers that day. And this is all before I put up my election result boxes. So suddenly I'm getting inundated with these new followers and I'm like, and then I run into this conundrum. And the conundrum was, do I want these new followers to like, the first thing they see after they follow me because of Bluey is like, here's this guy that's like trying to walk with people on both sides of the aisle. And I was like, of course, that's why they're here. I feel like that's why God sent them to me. So I put up the question boxes and there was a lot of feelings. It was good. I think a lot of people, I think when you look at the question boxes, again, like I said, the Kamala voters were talking about why they were terrified, and then the Trump voters. And so like a lot of the Trump voters were like, gosh, the Kamala voters are obviously listening to mainstream media because they're believing in lies. That's why they're terrified, which isn't completely true. And then the Kamala voters were like, all the responses of the Trump voters are just like, oh, we love you, don't worry. And they're like, well, what happens if everything we're fearful of actually comes to pass? Like, what are you going to do? How are you going to love us? What do you mean you love us if you voted against? Right. And so like there was still a lot of those feelings. And I think it's because I didn't set up the questions as well as I would the next time. But I did get a lot of people going, thank you. Thank you. And I have it as a highlight bubble. Thank you for showing us in a diffused way some beliefs of people that hang out with me in the Insta Familia. And I just thought, curiosity leads to empathy, and empathy leads to trust, and trust leads to conversation, and conversation can lead to change. Can somebody write that down? That just kind of came out of me, but I feel like that's maybe somewhat of a good scaffolding to build some conversations off of. Water. We need to drink lots of water. Our bodies are made up, 60% of our bodies are made up of water, which although every time I hear that stat, I'm like, how is that even possible? Like I feel like I should be a little bit more wobbly. No, but 60% of our bodies are made up of water. And if you're like me, you just don't trust the tap water. Have you ever drinking tap water out of a hotel sink? No? Faucet? No? Just me? It always tastes so weird. I always get nervous every time I do it, but I'm fine. Here's the thing. We're always looking to drink the highest quality water, the best, the cleanest water. And that is what AquaTrue is for. My family uses the AquaTrue water purifier. It is upstairs right now next to the sink. My wife was just filling it up today. And we use it all the time. I use it even to make my coffee. I can't necessarily taste the difference in my coffee, but I trust that it's clean. Why do I trust that it's clean? Well, it's because AquaTrue literally removes 15% more contaminants than ordinary pitcher filters do. We love our AquaTrue. It uses a 4-stage reverse osmosis purification process. It's so cool. No installation. You don't have to install anything, right? They've got fancier versions that you can install, but you don't have to install anything. You just put it on your counter, plug it in, pour water into the back of it, and you've got yourself some incredibly pure water. The filters are affordable and long-lasting. You don't have to change them every 2 or 3 months. AquaTrue filters last from 6 months to 2 years. Listen to this. Just one set of their filters makes the equivalent of 4,500 bottles of water. That's less than 3 cents a bottle. You ever been to the gas station, you buy yourself one of the water bottles and you're like, how in the world is this so expensive? Nope, not with AquaTrue. Fill it up yourself. All right, so listen, I love it. The Whittaker family loves it. My wife loves it. We got something for you. AquaTrue comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee and even makes a great gift. Today, my listeners receive 20% off. It's a great gift. Any AquaTrue purifier. Just go to aquatrue.com. That's AQUATRU.com and enter code HumanHope at checkout. That's 20% off any AquaTrue water purifier when you go to aquatrue.com and use promo code HUMANHOPE. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors. That's crazy. And listen, if you want to ditch the busy work, use Indeed. You can use it for scheduling, screening, and messaging. So you don't have to use email, texting, no, it's all in one place. One of the things I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy. And the interface is just so smooth. I've visited many other websites where you're looking to hire people, even contractors, and they're so clumsy. Indeed is smooth. It's like butter. It's so easy to navigate. Leveraging over 150 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it actually gets. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/humanhope. Just go to Indeed.com/humanhope right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/humanhope. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Curiosity leads to empathy. Empathy leads to trust. Trust leads to conversation. Conversation leads to change. And that's kind of my way of having hard conversations. My Instagram is the very wide end of my funnel. The podcast is obviously towards the bottom end, right? Because I talk longer, I get more specific, I give more of my opinions here. But Instagram's always going to be the wide end. I'm going to keep it as wide for the spiritually curious, for people that don't believe what I believe. I want, it's an invitation. My Instagram is an invitation. And so I guess what I'm getting at is, I love that. I love being that place where people that are curious can maybe go, huh? And I know not everybody's in a place right now where they have the ability to be curious right now because they're still wounded, they still hurt, they're still mad, and I get it. And those are very real and valid feelings. And so I'm not saying that right now is the time that everyone can enter into those conversations. But what I am saying is I just feel like, and I said this on my Instagram, if if you read something from someone that, is a friend of yours that has an opposing view of you, and what you want to do is immediately correct them with facts, nothing's going to change. So instead of chasing after facts and trying to change their mind with facts, I want people to go to the pain point of the person that you disagree with. Because the pain point is real, whether you agree with them or not. Pain is pain. And once you get to the pain point, you can begin to understand the pain point, and then you can love on the pain point. And when you love on the pain point, which really only happens within empathy, you love on the pain point, that person feels that love from you, and trust begins to build, and then trust can lead to conversation, and conversation can lead to change. So I just feel like we need more of that. And that's kind of where I'm heading in everything that I'm doing. My management team and I had a meeting a couple weeks ago where we just really wanted to get to the baseline level of who is Carlos Whittaker and what is he trying to do. And so we kind of have like an inner dialogue, like inner mission statement. And again, what it is like, I feel like I'm very good at speaking to the skeptic. I'm very good at building trust with people that don't agree with me. And talking to the wide end on my Instagram every day. But I want to build things that take people from the wide to the narrow, to the point. I can be blatantly honest with you because you're my podcast listeners and you've already made it through 12 minutes and 48 seconds of this. My ultimate goal is so that people see that Jesus Christ is going to be the only thing that can give them freedom. I'm not an evangelist. I'm not trying to save everybody, but I want people to know that is the bottom tip. That's the tip of the spear for my perspective of what healing and freedom looks like. But I'm not going to be shouting that out from the curb. And so people disagree with me on that. People think that I should be more specific in my message of Jesus and the gospel and the cross and the resurrection in some places. I'm like, no, I'm going to cry at an episode of Bluey, and I'm going to invite everybody to cry with me. And if that leads to a deeper conversation in DMs, and then somebody picks up a book of mine that's a little bit deeper, and then somebody listens to my podcast a little bit deeper, and then somebody maybe comes to an event that I put on later, whatever, that really helps people find freedom, that's the funnel we're going through. Did not think this is where the conversation was going to go today, but I just kind of turned. I've got a plan. We're shifting some of the podcast stuff in 2025 that I'm really excited about. And that's actually where I'm leading us is, because I feel like this podcast can be a place where people that are a little bit more curious than they would be on Instagram can dive a little deeper. Curiosity is really everything that I am about, I think, in 2025. Again, because of all the things that follow it. All the things that follow curiosity leads to empathy. Oh, what was my system again? See, I already forgot. Curiosity leads to empathy. Empathy leads to trust. Trust leads to conversations. Conversations lead to change. Is that right? And I want your help with curiosity. My last book, How to Human. I'm sorry, that was my 2 books ago. My last book, Reconnected, was a curious book. People are curious. What is it like to live for 7 weeks and not look at a phone? What happened to your brain? What was it like to live with the monks? What was it like to live with the Amish? I was curious in this book, which is what led to the book. And my curiosity led to lived experience with monks. And suddenly I have a new appreciation towards the monks, even though I don't believe everything that the monks believe. Almost everything, but not everything. And then it led to being curious with the Amish. And I definitely don't believe everything the Amish believe. But curiosity to the Amish led to empathy of the Amish and the Amish to me, which led to trust, which led to conversation, which led to change in both of our lives, all of our lives. And I want this podcast to be the same thing. I want to be curious, and I want people's curiosity to lead to the next step of empathy. And I think that in 2025, the Carlos Whittaker podcast could actually become that. So one of the things I'm thinking about doing is beginning to share the stories and interview people that may be looked over and their stories are amazing, but we're not hearing them. Everybody's got like all the like main authors on their podcast. And I'm actually looking for a link right now if you're watching me. All the same people are on the podcast, right? All the famous people, the celebrities. And I'm like, there's so many more good stories beyond. I'm looking for this from Whitney. I'm going to ask her right now. Hang on. Beyond the stories that are getting all the attention. And what I want to do, can you send me the link to the podcast form you built? Boom. There you go. Turn the volume down. So Whitney's going to send something to me because I want to read something to you that we typed up. I guess what I'm saying is that I'm looking for some of your stories. Have you ever seen Humans of New York, where you're just fascinated by the ordinary? I think we gloss over the ordinary, and I think there's stuff to behold in ordinary stories. And I think there's stuff to be curious about that can lead us to empathy and lead to change. And I want to find those. So it's like, I'm looking in my head, I'm like, what if like episode 102 is like Carlos Whittaker Podcast, episode 102, Barb, 62, plumber. And then Barb is either anonymous or not. She can, as the guest, she can choose. But her story leads us to be like, I never knew that about humans. I never knew that about the subculture, whatever it is. I never knew that about whatever. And I'm glad I know now. Typical children's vitamins are basically candy in disguise. Y'all remember the children's vitamins that your mama and daddy used to make you eat when you were a little kid? Yeah, it was candy. No wonder we loved it. But listen, most of them are filled with 2 teaspoons of sugar. 2 teaspoons of sugar. If whenever I was eating cereal as a kid, I would dump 2 teaspoons of sugar, my mom would lose her mind in my cereal. But then, we'd be given these children's vitamins, which actually have the same thing in them. And they're also filled nowadays with like gummy junk that our kids really should never eat. This is why precisely Hiya was created. Hiya is the pediatrician approved, super powered, chewable vitamin. Hiya fills in the most common gaps in modern children's diets to provide the full body nourishment our kids need with a yummy taste that they love. Okay, listen, it's got 15 essential vitamins and minerals, including vitamin D, B12, C, zinc, folate, and all sorts of others to help support immunity, energy, brain function, mood. Could I please have had some of these high vitamins when one of my kids, I won't mention any names, was 12 years old? Mood, concentration, teeth, bones, and even more. Hiya is designed for kids 2 years old and up and sent straight to your door so parents have one less thing to worry about. Okay, listen, I love that part of Hiya. I don't have to go and get it, just get shipped straight to the door. So listen, I need you to know we've worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. 50%, that's crazy. To claim this deal, you must go to hiyahealth.com/humanhope. This deal is not available on the regular website. Go to hiyahealth.com/humanhope and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. The Carlos Whittaker Podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Y'all know how much I love getting help, not only on like things of business and things of, faith, but I love to get help on things of my mental health. And that's what BetterHelp does for us. I have benefited from therapy for so many years. I literally can't imagine one human being I know that wouldn't benefit from therapy, which is why I think BetterHelp is so good. BetterHelp is online therapy. It's entirely online. If you're thinking about starting therapy, why don't you start with BetterHelp? It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And then you can also switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Some people, you're just not vibing. You can go to another one as well. Sometimes it's hard to remind ourselves that we actually deserve help ourselves. We love to help other people, but I want to let you know, especially during this holiday season, it's okay to get help yourself. So we have worked out a special deal with BetterHelp, literally for you. You can, this holiday season, get the help you need with BetterHelp. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/humanhope today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/humanhope. You know, I have a pickleball Instagram account. In my pickleball Instagram account, I share stories of people that I meet around the country as I'm playing pickleball. Like I was in Corpus Christi and I was like, this dude is worked in a copper mine for 25 years and kind of shared a story. People loved it. I played pickleball in Portland against a guy. He was a trash collector. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that. I love watching the trash trucks come by when I was a little kid. Do you still hang off the back of those things? Shared his story. And I just thought, oh my gosh, like I'm curious about what if the podcast was a little bit more like this? So we have a human school, because that's what we're going to call this version of the podcast, Human School, podcast guest application. And there's more to Human School coming, FYI. Welcome to the Carlos Whittaker podcast, Human School. In 2025, I'm telling your stories. This next year, I'm going to spend my days speaking directly to you about you. I want to know your life story, where you came from, how you ended up where you are. What made you who you are? What do you believe in? Why do you or do you not vote? How do you have fun? Etc. Right? Like I want to get into the nitty gritty. My goal this year is to help us remain curious about other people's stories. I want our curiosity to lead to empathy, which now, because I said it out loud and I hadn't written it in the podcast form, curiosity leads to empathy, empathy leads to trust, trust leads to conversation, conversation leads to change. Are you a CIA operative? Are there any of you that are CIA? I just want one, please. If you know one, please let me talk to them. Or do you run a campaign for a famous politician? Maybe you have a mundane office job, but spend your evenings discovering a new species. Or maybe you're a trash truck driver and you see fascinating things every day you think people would love to know about. I'm looking for secretly extraordinary stories that make for a great conversation. I don't know about you, but doesn't that sound fun? Doesn't that sound like an inhaler to an asthmatic? Doesn't that sound like breath-giving? If we could be curious about people that are commonly misunderstood or not misunderstood, just not even stood. Is that a word? As a guest, you will have full control over what you share about your story. You will also have the option to remain anonymous. I can't wait to meet you. Then we've got on this form, we've got, your story. So like, listen, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, like people, when I tell them my story or whatever, their jaws drop. Remember, I'm looking for I'm not necessarily looking for and there can be some, but I'm not necessarily looking for like traumatic stories. There's a lot of those. I can find those all the time. And I feel like, we all have those. I'm not looking for the trauma necessarily. I'm looking for the wow. I'm looking for the, I'm looking for the wow that will make people curious about you. So I guess it's kind of, I'm looking for like stories that can uplift. Of course, everyone's got trauma in their stories. We're not going to gloss over those things, but I'm really looking for like the copper miner. He was sitting here telling me about like what it was like to work that many miles underground and for that many hours a day and how, he'd come up and there was actually kind of traumatic, but it was fascinating. He's like, yeah, like I just never saw the sun. I'd go in before the sun would come up. I'd come up after it was dark. But like, man, the fun that I had in there. And he told me some of the games that him and his coworkers would play and like hide and seek in some of the mines. And I'm like, what? This is crazy. And I just found it fascinating. One time I was at a Starbucks and I met a guy. We were talking. He's just sipping a Starbucks. And I was like, hey, so tell me, like, what do you do? He's like, I'm retired. So we're talking about what he does when retired. And I was like, what'd you do before you retired? He's like, oh, I was an arborist. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, what do you mean? He's like, well, actually, and to come to find out, he was like the most famous arborist in America. And we talked for like an hour. And I was like, my jaw was hanging open because I was like, no way. I want those. I want jaw-dropping, no way. Wow. Stories. Is that you? Is that someone you know? Do you feel like that would be interesting to you? It's the direction I'm going, so hopefully you do. Now, again, that doesn't mean I'm not going to hop on here like this for 25 minutes and tell you my thoughts on current affairs or on Bluey. We'll get back to Bluey in a second. But it does mean that I really want to shift the attention of this podcast away from maybe who everybody is looking at to who everyone needs to be looking at. Ooh. So on this, we're going to put the link in the podcast show. I'm not going to announce this on Instagram yet. You're going to be my beta testers. The link is in the show notes on all the places that, whether YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this. And if you know somebody, or if that person is you, I want you to fill out the application. There's a little thing you're gonna have to fill a video, a 1 to 3 minute video of yourself sharing the main plot of your story that will grip listeners' attention. Please submit a 1 to 3 minute video of yourself sharing the main plot of your story that will grip listeners' attention. So, is that you? I want to know. Because here's the thing. If I only get like 5 of these, I know I can't do an entire season of this, right? But if you know people who would be fascinating to listen to because of their life story, what they do, who they are, not what they know necessarily, send them the application. I would love to find out who these people are. Back to Bluey. Bluey, should I play for you guys the no, because it's mostly audio and me crying. Bluey, I'm probably 14 episodes in. I feel like Bluey, people are like, Bluey, Carlos, Bluey is you, but in an Australian dog form. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cute. But then the more I watch it, I'm like, no, I think that, is it Benji? What's the little sister's name? Oh man. 14 episodes, I can't remember. But I feel like I'm more her. She's really sweet. Friends, thanks for this stream of consciousness about what I want the podcast to be, what I believe in how the funnel of not only my life, but I think all of our lives. You know, some people are called to be the bottom end of the funnel. Some people are called to reach the top end of the funnel. I feel like I'm called to reach the top end, which again is going to be curiosity leads to empathy, which leads to trust, which leads to conversation, which leads to change. Come on, I love it. Oh, do you love it? Hopefully you do. Maybe we'll title the podcast episode that. Curiosity leads to empathy. Empathy. No, I can't rap it. Dun, dun, dun. Hey, listen, thanks for hanging out. Another stream of consciousness from Carlos Whittaker. Hopefully you enjoyed last week. A lot of people already told me just how much how to remove stakes, fence post stakes from your yard helped you. You're not even decorating for Christmas. You're like, oh my gosh, I had one of those in my yard. I haven't been able to take it out. Now you were able to. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and listen to last week's episode. And thanks for being here with me. Thanks for letting me talk to you about the dreams and the hopes of the podcast. I'm excited. I think it's going to be good. So please, if you've got a story that will leave listeners' jaws going like, whoa, please go to the link in the show notes, fill out the application. Let me hear your story. And I will see you next week on another episode of the Carlos Whittaker podcast, the Thanksgiving episode. Wait a second. Hold on. Is there an episode next week? I've got to see if there may not be an episode next week. I don't want to tell you if there is, if there isn't. I'm looking. No, there's no podcast next week. There's none. So I will see you on December the 9th. Is that right? Yeah, December the 9th. No, not December the 9th, December the 5th. Wow, what a freaking mess I am. I am going to see you December the 5th. And we're going ham all in Christmas on that episode. We're going to be talking about Christmas traditions. Heather is going to be a guest on that episode, so you're not going to want to miss it. I will see you in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Oh no, what are we going to do? I'll still be hanging on Instagram, but I'm going to lay low next week during Thanksgiving. Love you guys. See you next week on another episode of the Carlos Whittaker Podcast.